Gyre has received some really good indirect buffs. As we know, Gyre Prime has released with the new update. While I initially was not going to make a video for her, I decided I will because of a few things that have been added into the new update that benefit Gyre drastically. For those of you who do not know, Gyre is an insanely powerful Warframe that holds one of, if not the strongest gun buffing platform in the game. She also has the ability to be a walking nuke. She is one of my favorite Warframes for a very good reason. There is so much to this Warframe that even my first two and this video will not cover all of Gyre's synergies. You may be wondering, what are the new things? I'll give you a little hint. New arcanes. Let's get into the video. I want to make this very clear, this is not a deep dive. If you would like to see a full guide on her, I will add a card in the top right and the video link in the description. This is going to be more of a slightly light guide on Gyre. We're going to quickly brush over the most important things that you need to know about her kit so that it all makes sense to you. And then we're going to go over what's new with the builds and so on. The builds are pretty much the same, it's just more what's around it. By the way, for those of you who are watching this video and are wondering, you can farm Gyre Prime via relic packs through Teshin, syndicates, and open world vendors. Or you can farm the relics via Uko for Miso and Neo relics, Hepit for Lith, and Apollo or Kappa for Axie and Neo relics. Let's do a quick overview of her abilities. Gyre's passive. Her entire kit works off of electricity and zapping the ever-living shit out of enemies. Gyre's abilities, specifically her abilities, will gain 10% flat crit chance for every electricity proc affecting an individual to deal 2 times the critical damage against said enemy. This does synergize with her third, which we'll go over later on. The crit bonus will stop at 300%, meaning 30 electricity procs. That's your entire goal when using Gyre. You want to get to red crits with her, and I will go over how you can do that quite easily. This applies to all of her abilities. Her first ability is called Arc Sphere. Throw ball, ball explodes and makes a big ball. Zaps enemies every second, applying electricity status effects. You can only have 3 at one time, and you can also pop it in mid-air. If 3 enemies are affected by the field, then the damage is multiplied by 2 times. It's great to stack electricity to help her other abilities and also crowd control enemies, allowing you to stay alive a little bit easier. Her second ability is called Coil Horizon. Throw another ball that rolls around with physics. Lasts about 2 seconds, then it implodes, pulling enemies in, dealing electricity damage. I'll get into the augment a little later, but this is purely used for pulling enemies in to maximize all the electricity damage. Very handy to use. Cathode Grace, which is her third, is a beautiful ability. Cast this to surge yourself. You will then regenerate 1.5 energy per second at base strength, and this ability will grant Gyre's abilities and weapons this time with extra crit chance. Each enemy that is killed while this is active will increase the duration of Cathode Grace by 3 seconds at base stats. If you do not kill an enemy in time, there will be a cooldown timer that starts as you cast it and lasts 60 seconds. Bottom line, keep this up at all times. Get to killing enemies to completely forget about this ability because you'll constantly regenerate or, increase the duration so that you don't have to worry about it. But that is no problem with Gyre because she can kill tons of enemies very quickly. Cathode Grace will decrease the needed 30 electric procs from your passive, helping you get there with less electricity procs. So scaling strength will help Gyre a lot. Her fourth ability is called Rotor Swirl. Spin around, create a ring that spins around you, but now listen carefully, this is where it gets juicy. You gain 1.5 times the movement speed when activated. You will then shock enemies within 4 meters at base with electricity damage. While this is active, whenever you hit a critical hit, whether that's from any of your abilities or your weapon in your hand, it will then send out a lightning discharge on that enemy, chaining outward to 5 other enemies within 10 meters of the zapped enemy. Now here's what's crazy. I don't even think there's a range for this. You can shoot an enemy from way down there, and whenever you hit a crit, well, then you proc a discharge. Every time you do a discharge, it will have a 1-second cooldown before you can do it again. Alright, a quick summary. Gyre loves electricity. The more you proc, the more red crits you do. Her whole kit zaps enemies. Rotor Swirl relies on critting enemies through abilities and weapons. Her third ability helps your passive drastically by reducing the need for 30 electricity procs. Cool, so we know that, that's great. Q Augments, more specifically Cathode Current. While Cathode Grace is active, her third, killing an enemy will release an additional discharge from Rotor Swirl. with 200% damage and extend its duration by the same amount. Meaning, with this augment, you gain more damage from the discharges, and Cathode Grace plus Rotor Swell become a cast and forget ability, leaving your 1 and 2 to worry about recasting the whole time. Then we have Coil Recharge. This augment is for Coil Horizon, her second ability, which allows you to now walk the ball with all its physics and everything and kick it around with your melee too. It no longer implodes after 2 seconds, and this augment is so juiced, it's not even a joke. The ball will now also have a mini Rotor Swell ring around it. It will zap enemies and send out a discharge every 4 seconds as you cast it. You will see a little icon on the top right pop up. For every 15 meters traveled, the sphere will discharge to an enemy and reduce the timer by 0.25 seconds all the way down to a minimum of 0.25 seconds at 225 meters traveled. Any crits will also trigger Rotor Swell's discharge. If you're struggling to get the picture here, let me play you this clip with over 225 meters traveled. But wait, there is more. Once you detonate it by holding down the ability, it will then apply that discharge timer with additional discharges as well. Coil Recharge is kind of cracked. You can move the ball by tapping the ability or meleeing it in a certain direction for the required meters. If the ability runs out of its duration, it will then implode by itself. This augment can be paired with the Cathode Current augment for a Gyre Nuke setup, but I also know that this is not for everyone because you're going to have to kind of micromanage this ball. It gets a bit weird. Then there is the Conductive Sphere augment, which I'll go over briefly in the gun buffing section, and then there's Reverse Rotor Swell, which, if I'm being honest, is not a bad augment, but it's not the craziest augment for Gyre. It does help with Gyre's survivability, but has become somewhat redundant with the new setup that I'm about to showcase to you in this video. After scaling some strength, it will cap at 75% damage taken to be redirected to the target as electricity damage. So like I said, it's just helps with your survivability. Okay, that covers most of the augments for now. Now, where does the whole Gyre is better now and how is she buffed? You see, the biggest problem Gyre has ever faced is not the lack of damage. No, she could do that no problem in many ways. It's definitely not the lack of crowd control. The biggest issue for Gyre is her survivability. She can die pretty easily. In my previous guides, I went through hell and back to try and give you guys ways to survive easier with Gyre, and they do work. You can definitely use those methods. They make her pretty difficult to kill. But now, we have a new addition to the mix. I present to you Arcane Circumvent, by far one of my favorite new arcanes in Warframe. It states, roll through enemies to steal 50% of their defense for yourself. Stolen armor lasts 15 seconds. This actually means whenever you roll through an enemy that has either armor, shields, and overguard, you will steal 50% of that for yourself. It will also strip all of those stats with each roll, meaning 2 quick rolls through an enemy will result in a full defense strip. This arcane alone makes a huge difference in Gyre's survivability. Plus, it synergizes so well with the kit in the sense that Rotor Swell and Cathode Current can proc when you're dashing around everywhere. Let's say you're about to die. Well, no problem, just steal some shields or overguard from an enemy. Of course, it doesn't make her invulnerable, and there will be times that you will still get one shot if you're not focusing, whatever, or if you're in a bad spot and you can't steal any defenses. You get the idea here. The arcane just makes her feel a lot more comfortable to play and use in missions. Plus, it also provides an option for armor stripping enemies, which means all of your abilities deal even more damage reliably. But you're probably thinking, oh, Flo, what about, rolling through enemies is kind of slow? Well, I present to you one more time. Amalgam Barrel Diffusion on your secondary, allowing your dodge speed to be increased by 60%. But wait, add parkour velocity so that you can dodge further. Now you are gracefully dancing around your enemies' corpses. Congratulations. But I'm not done. Praedos. The Praedos is a melee stat stick that provides parkour velocity and sprint plus slide speed. If you don't have the Praedos, that's okay because it is an MR14 weapon, but if you can work towards it, then it will help you drastically with Gyre. Then we have a new arcane called Melee Careen. On roll, freeze enemies in a 5.5 meter radius with a 2-second cooldown. This arcane just goes hand in hand with Circumvent, and it will proc even if your melee is on your back. Unfortunately, the frozen enemies will not take increased crit damage from Gyre's abilities. I tested it. I really wished it did because it would have made Gyre insanely strong, but no, it does not increase the crit damage from Gyre's force. However, it does add another layer of survivability onto Gyre. You don't need the Praetos for this, by the way. You can use it on any melee that you see fit, but the Praetos is just nice for, if you're not using your melee and you want something to kind of help you move quicker, the Praetos is amazing for that. There's another side to Kareen which makes it so special. It's the simple fact that it allows you to reliably proc Arcane Ice Storm on Gyre herself. You can see how everything just interlinks here. If you don't opt for Ice Storm, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to worry about this. Sadly, the Arcane doesn't increase her damage, which I was super upset about, although it still helps her by freezing enemies, and it all just works so well together. Let's move on to the Nuke Gyre setups. Here we have two options. The first one is a raw setup, by far my favorite Nuke setup. Here we subsume either her first or second, depends on what you want to use, but I have done her second ability because I use raw for gun buffing as well. Her second will group enemies, making it more satisfying in some cases if you want to go all in on the nuking setups. I then stack strength with 175% range with Archon Stretch and Augur Reach. Archon Stretch works very well with her because, I mean, come on, do I need to explain it to you? We run Cathode Current, Adaptation for more survivability, and then the arcanes are Ice Storm and Circumvent. You can switch out Ice Storm for Augmented if you like that 20% more strength and don't care about the extra duration. In mission, all you do is cast Cathode Grace, Rotor Swell to start zapping enemies, allowing you to stack both durations, cast Raw to increase the damage of your zaps and abilities. Pretty straightforward. Now you can take this further and try and maximize your nuking potential as follows. Remember, you need electricity to get red crits even with the scaled Cathode Grace. My personal favorite way to prime enemies with electricity is, of course, once again, I think you guys are tired of it, the handy Dariga with Arc Coil and this Tazakor build right here. Then we have the Praetos for utility and melee Kareen to move around the map, freezing enemies and gliding faster. For the secondary, you can opt for another primer to prime for electricity that has Amalgam Barrel Diffusion if you'd like. Or you can actually use the Grimoire, which is what I love to use. I like to use the Invocation mod to increase your strength. With the Amalgam mod, this allows you to snapshot your fourth and third ability plus Raw with that extra 60% ability strength, further increasing your nuking potential. Your primary can be whatever you like. Sometimes I like to run Cedo to prime with electricity. Archon Shards can be 1 casting speed, 1 energy shard because I don't have flow on my build, and then 2 or 3 purple shards increasing your electricity damage on ability. Works perfectly with Gyre's nuking setup. That covers the raw side. The other option is subsuming raw over your 1 or keeping a no helmet setup, making use of cathode current and coil recharge. This allows you to nuke enemies with the ball and your fourth ability too. Again, this is up to you. It's what you want out of Gyre. All of the min-maxing tips that I've just mentioned will apply to the setup too. In fact, they apply to all of Gyre's builds. That's pretty much all you need for the nuking setup. You don't need to go the extra mile and get a Grimoire or spam Gyre with Archon Shards. They are nice to haves, but as long as you have the raw setup or even just a no helmet setup and you can reliably apply electricity procs, she will do very well. Now we move on to gun buffing Gyre. We're going to summarize this because this can go on for so long. Remember, I have made an entire guide on just gun buffing Gyre alone, so please go and have a look at that video if you'd like to learn the ins and outs of it. But here is the summary. Arc Sphere, her first ability, throws down a ball. The Augment Conductor Sphere will allow any projectile that passes through the sphere's field to have an extra instance of electricity damage and electricity status damage. This means increasing the damage over time from the electricity procs. You can easily get over 150% bonus damage with this. Each damage instance will have a guaranteed electricity proc, so high multi-shot weapons means big electricity procs. This stacks with each sphere, meaning 3 times the buff, allowing you to deal millions of damage with pretty much any weapon. Oh wait, it applies to companions projectiles too. Subsume Shock onto our second ability and use Shock Trooper. Adds another layer of electricity. Cathode Grace grants us increased crit chance. Violet Archon Shards give increased primary damage that stack on top of each other, meaning 5 of these shards will grant us 600% electricity damage scaling on our primary weapons. Oh, and guess what? Sorry, did I forget to mention that we also have another new arcane now, Primary Debilitate, which will then further add to her effectiveness by allowing you to proc more base elements. Oh wait, Melee Kareen will fully freeze enemies, which means we get increased critical damage because we're using our weapons now. Yeah, Gyre has received some serious indirect buffs. This is what the Shock Trooper build looks like. The Archon shards would also be similar, with you stacking those purple shards for primary damage instead, but it's not 100% needed. It does make a big difference, but it's not needed. The gameplay is simple. Same thing with all of her builds. You keep Cathode Grace up with Rotor Swell for discharges. You throw down your arc spheres so that you can shoot through them to deal a metric ton of damage to nearby enemies, and then you keep up Raw or Shock Trooper. Pretty straightforward. You can use secondaries or primaries. It really doesn't matter with gun buffing Gyre. She is literally one of the best gun buffing frames in the game. She makes anything do stupid damage. That's why she's so amazing. Alright, for my final thoughts, Gyre definitely benefits from these new arcanes, and she's definitely seen quite an improvement. She has loads of fun. She can do so much. It is crazy how good she is. I highly encourage you to get her Prime version. She is definitely worth a try. Thank you so much for the channel members who support this channel. Your support is amazing. Thank you guys. I appreciate you so much. I will see you all in the next video.